Welcome to Peripheral Views podcast, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this January 14th, 2024. Welcome back to the program. I'm your host, Jake, and Erroll is with me. He's my co-host. What's going on tonight, Erroll? How are we doing?
Yeah, pretty bad. I messed up.
Yeah, we had in the works the Blaze Foley record or compilation record sitting by the road. Old Erroll got his wires crossed. No problem there. We're instead going to pivot, like last minute pivot, into a fireside chat tonight, which is actually, at the end of the day, I'm not too worried about it. I actually think it's probably a good opportunity for us to kind of introduce this series and gives us an opportunity to kind of, like, I don't know, um, kind of parse out some ideas a little bit, just kind of do a little chit chat, fireside style, and kind of gives us it also fills in a week because I was gonna announce in the podcast tonight we did manage to salvage our Christmas episode. Errol, I didn't get your take on that. How do you feel about salvaging that long forgotten, what we thought was our heartbroken lost Christmas episode?
It's a Christmas miracle.
It really quite is. I mean, it was. I had to dig deep into the back files of my desktop, but I managed to salvage it. So that one is going to be we're going to shelve that for next Christmas season. So you guys will get a peep onto that at the end of the year. That'll fill in a week for us. But in the meantime, we're gonna push back the Blaze Foley record episode by a week, and this week we'll fill in a nice fireside chat. And we were just talking a little bit, Errol, about you've made some conscious health decisions, which is admirable. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what's the effects of what some of your choices have been?
You know, I I really started to go to the gym in like a pursuit of vanity. And then so I was like going to the gym just to like kind of like be in better shape. And like I started a week before the New Year's resolution. So I think I said it before just so I could be like, forget those guys. But with that, the biggest change that came is I realized that I wasn't going to get any change unless I changed up my diet. So I was like, what do I want to do? Because while I am working out and like trying to better myself, I'm lazy. Like I haven't done anything for 10 years. Um, and I was like, what's the easiest thing to do? So I went with keto. I just picked a rabbit out the head. I was like, this one's gonna do. I was like, I don't really need to eat bread. I can eat all the bacon and eggs. So I was like, good. That's all I do. Bacon, eggs, and chicken wings. That's what sold me. Um, but I was scrolling through the list and it said beer. And I was like, I can't do it. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, you can. So on top of cutting like carbs out for the most part and working out, I also cut out beer. So I should be a little less less spacey, a little more on track when it comes to these future podcasts for the main part. But yeah, no, my advice would be like if anyone's thinking about like changing up their routine, like they want to stop a vice, best advice I have is to pick up another vice, like a positive one. Um, I started working out and it made me want to focus on doing other things. So as opposed to just being, oh, I'm going to stop drinking just for the sake of stopping drinking, which let's be real, that's not fun. That's not fun. I was like, I'm going to stop drinking because there is a goal. So
Yeah, it's a solid. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I mean, the alcohol is poison, as they say.
you want to know what the World Health Organization classifies alcohol as a poison and a class 1 carcinogen.
Oh yeah, I mean, what?
So it is that is what it
Effects?
does. It's a cancer causing poison, but it's also technically a vitamin.
Which one?
It's alcohol. It is a vitamin. Your body treats it like a vitamin, but it is the one vitamin that does nothing besides cause detriments. But it
Yeah,
still gets transported through your system like as vitamins would.
yeah. I mean, it's pretty destructive. I mean, there's more than there's more than enough examples in the world of people who have allowed alcohol to truly, like, actually diminish them. So I think it's a great omission. And I always try to like I always have like the mentality about like alcohol consumption is a is like a thing to moderate to like in like the best I think the best mode of alcohol consumption or like the best relationship to have with alcohol via um is like via moderation and like regulated.
Best relationships at an arm's distance.
Yeah, it's not like I guess the I don't know. I've always looked at it as like to completely omit it from your world is like that's fine too. I think that's great too because I've done it a few times. I've done like a year like without it just to see what like how healthy I could feel, and felt great. Those are like really good healthy years for me. It was like basically actually kind of like around the time we got pregnant with my kids because I wanted like there's a bunch of science about like your genetic profile and like the shape you're in when you conceive of your children is
Oh yeah.
like whatever genes you're like whatever shape you're in or whatever your general health portfolio looks like when you conceive of your kids is like that's the set of genes you're going to pass to them. So like I took the time that we were trying to get pregnant, I was like trying to make sure I was like tip top shape. So I omit alcohol, got my diet pretty clean, tons and tons of exercise, like best shape, best couple of years of my life in terms of overall health, and definitely noticeable. Definitely one thing I'll tell you, the biggest thing I notice without alcohol, without any alcohol use, is sleep. I sleep
Sleep.
so much better.
Yeah, and it's only been like 3 weeks or so, but maybe it's just because I've been so used to waking up like hungover. It is it's so weird just waking up like, oh, I'm kind of tired, and then like 5 minutes later, not even any coffee. I'll just drink some water right up.
Yeah, it's wild. It feels so much better. So much easier. It's so much easier to like I was actually just commenting like we just bought this new bed frame. Like we had this old bed frame that was like kind of big and like blocky, you know, it was like made of wood and it was kind of shitty and like it would creak, right? It was like a creaky bed frame. Like you climb into bed and like you could just it would just creak. Like all corners of it would creak. My daughter sleeps in our room with us, so like every time we get into bed, like that thing would creak and like wake her up or whatever. And then you don't realize it, but at night you're like tossing and turning or whatever, and the bed's creaking while you're freaking moving around, flipping and flopping sometimes. And we got this new bed frame, and I'm like we've had it for about a week now, and I'm like, holy shit! I'm like, I'm sleeping like a rock every night. I wonder what the hell. Well, like, it's just a bed frame. It's the same bed. Everything else is the same. Then I realized that like, oh, that fucking creaking was waking me up or disrupting my sleep, like just from like moving around at night. Like I'd flip over and like that was disrupting my sleep. It was actually fucking up my sleep like way more than I ever realized. And it wasn't until like all of a sudden I'm in this like still quiet bed frame now that like oh it was like oh shit. Like your
Yeah.
sleep's so much more sensitive than you realize, I think sometimes.
Oh yeah.
But yeah.
And my problem is I smoke as well. So like while I am kind of sleeping better, it's it's only slightly because if you smoke marijuana, then you don't necessarily go in your rapid eye movement cycles.
Oh no, yeah. You can't have any like you don't want any substances. Like even like people who take they supplement melatonin, like
Yeah.
it's actually like one of the worst. I've read that it's actually one of the worst things you can do for your sleep hygiene is to supplement with melatonin because then your brain will stop producing it on its own
Well,
because
so it's like it's like with any drug. Stuff that like makes dopamine. It will mess up your dopamine receptors. Steroids is a really good example of that. If you, me working out, I'm like, how do I get big? And it's like, have you thought about steroids? I'm like, damn it, it's always that. I'm like, how do I get big fast? And they're like, either steroids or lift more weight. And I'm like, this sucks. But steroids, if you take them, then your body will be like, well, we have an excess. We don't need to produce more because we have them. And that's why you'll get problems down the road. And like, um, people like the shrinking of the testicles, on top of all the other like physical health problems. But
yeah, I mean you if you want to produce, I've also read there's other ways to like produce more testosterone. Like you can take like you can supplement in other ways that are a little bit closer to the natural a natural supplementation, like that aren't pharmaceuticals in any way. Like you could take like Tungkat Ali is a root. It's like an eastern root that you can take in like a capsule form. You can take like tribulus root. There's like, and some of these things did work. I've noticed they've worked, at least for me. There's like obviously some mushrooms too. You can take like some of the
There's always a mushroom.
mushrooms are like the plant of the. They're like the super plant because they offer like,
They're not a plant. They're closer to
right. They're an
human.
organism, right?
Yeah, they're closer to humans than they are plants.
Yeah, that's true. I
They're
just
the
mean,
closest things to aliens, if you ask me.
well, they breathe too, right? They intake oxygen. It's like kind of.
There's like thousands of genders.
Oh, really?
Yeah, of mushrooms. It's like they get down like that. They get freaky, freaky.
That's that is kind of freaky. They're well. I've definitely read the thing about them like breathing as like a character trait of the mushroom, and that they also like they live off of like, whereas like other plants kind of survive on like the process of photosynthesis or whatever. Like they actually attach to other living organisms and like grow off of them, like specifically. They kind of like has how they survive. Like,
Yeah, they'll eat shit. They need a
yeah,
they'll they're bad
exactly.
mamma jammas. Um,
Turkey, like what is it? Turkey reishi is like a super useful. What are they called? They're called what are those style like cordyceps, turkey reishi. These mushrooms are called. I'm blanking on what type of like. I'll look it up now. Um, cordyceps. I mean, there are. Uh,
can't hear cordyceps without thinking of The Last of Us. I ain't eating that, bro.
what is that? Whoa, this is wild. What is this? Have you seen this
You
on
see
Google?
what?
If you go, if oh my God, this is like kind of insane. I don't understand what this is very bizarre. Okay, I've just discovered something for our listeners. This is not good for an audio podcast, but if you listen to what I'm, this is, I don't really understand how this is happening, but this is, I've never seen this, and I've just discovered something on Google. If you Google search cordyceps as like the mushroom, right? And then you scroll down and scroll up. So Errol, try this on your desktop if you get a chance. I'm going to refresh the page, see if I can replicate it. As soon as the Google page for cordyceps comes up, which is it's a fungi, a mushroom, a type of mushroom, a little red symbol with a mushroom pops up, and if you click that, like your screen will be overtaken by mushroom roots.
Oh, that is neat.
You see it?
Yeah.
And it just keeps going the more you click it. I don't really know why Google is doing that, but it's kind of cool, I guess. I'm not sure why. Um, I don't really understand why. This is a weird discovery, but Google's in on it. I mean, the more you click it, the more roots kind of emerge. Strange. Yeah, cordyceps are an interesting one. Some of that stuff I'm like really sensitive to though. Like I've taken all the mushrooms you can imagine, like a lot of the Chinese ones because of like lion's mane and cordyceps, obviously, and then reishi, and I've actually done not a mushroom but ashwagandha. That stuff I'm like really sensitive to. It makes me super jittery.
Mm. Have you seen the one thing where they put like fungus spores with they put fungus spores in a model or a scale model of Tokyo with uh food deposits um at metro hubs, and it almost made like an exact replica of the Tokyo Railway
Really? Oh,
because
like
it's like the most convenient pathway.
we were like replicated?
Yeah.
Interesting. Because it was
Like they
pretty.
both were like it was almost like an exact like they both did the same thing and it happened to be the most efficient way to do it.
Yeah, so they're like yeah, basically verified of what was actually truly most efficient.
Right. And they're also verified that there's some kind of thinking going on in that hive mind of fungus.
Fascinating.
Like overall rhyme or reason. Oh yeah, but I was talking about weed, how it messes up your REM thing. You wanna know my biggest gripe? The biggest elephant in the room that like the like I don't want to the like the spiritual people who like smoke weed and like do like hallucinogens and stuff.
Mhm.
Like kind of like the hippie like folk, like you know what I'm talking about. Like people who are like, oh yeah, like peace and like vibrations and like they all smoke weed and I'm not going to talk smack because I smoke weed, but it's something that I've come across and I've realized and it hit me like a bullet train. Um Everyone talks about doing all these hallucinogens and stuff, but we all smoke weed so we can't even dream every night. Like we literally get dimethyltryptamine for free, whole movie pictures that are like subconscious depictions of like what we are going through, our past, our present, our possible future.
Mhm.
And we're so jaded that we're like, oh, I'll just do LSD like every now and again and
It's a really good
just
point.
keep smoking weed when you could just stop smoking weed and trip balls every time you go to for free when you go to bed. Like literally you go to sleep. So instead of just and here's another thing too, the most depressing part about it, and it's I don't like to think about it that much because it is, so if you don't have REM sleep, you're not dreaming as like much as you should or as vivid to the point where for the most part you don't even remember your dreams. If you smoke a lot, then you'll wake up and it'll just be like blank. That is like half of your life that you're not living.
It's true because you're sleeping it. Well,
Just
it's a
it's
third.
just well, it's you're sleeping, but at least when you're sleeping normally, you'll like have dreams and be able to experience something. If it's just you don't remember it, if it's just blank, half of the time you are living technically is just, you know, error code. Did not, did unsaved file, corrupted file.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's definitely an aspect that you're foregoing because marijuana completely suppresses any dream state that you can recall, at least.
And it is like for there, I'll dream every now and again. Like, and it's not like you'll just never dream if you just, but when I stopped smoking when I moved to Hawaii because I kind of like had to because like change of scenery, I wasn't gonna go like knocking door to door and be like, hey, and plus you don't really need to when you move. At least I found that I don't necessarily need to in a change of scenery. But it took like 2 or 3 weeks, but like during that like the second or third week, I had like an epiphany of a dream, like a world shattering like like coming to of like my past and like school and stuff like that. And I was like, that's like crazy. Like it was like such a wild, vivid dream that I still remember like it to this day. It was a talent show. Um and we were all doing our stuff. I think you might have been on the stage with me. And partway during the scene, I tripped and I fell off the back of the stage. And everyone's like, oh. But like, the show must go on. So like you guys are still dancing and stuff. And I was like, well, I already fell off. It doesn't matter. So I was just like dancing in the background. And then the show ended. And then I got back up and I was like, all right, good job. Boom, boom, boom. We all leave. And then I was talking to someone. And then they're like, what happened back there? And I was like, oh, I just like tripped and I fell off the stage. And they're like, yeah, like, why didn't you like come back? Like you fell off halfway through and then you never came back. And I was like, yeah, like not a big deal. And then like I woke up and I thought about it and I was like, oh snap, like in high school, I fell off and like I stopped going and then I just never went back.
Oh, so
Eh,
it was analogous.
Right. And I was like, I never went back. And like, while I just wanted to, like, personally, I was like, oh, it's not a big deal. Like, who cares? Like, other people still like would worry or were worried about it to a degree or like at least wondering like it would be disingenuous just for me to be like like not a big deal to me but everyone else is still gonna be like what the heck so that was kind of I want to say like eye-opening that I was like my consequences like have or my actions have consequences and like they might it wasn't like anything bad but I was like dang I might like need to like do some explaining to both like myself and other people if I see them.
Yeah, I mean, dreams can definitely do that. I think that well, this is very like Freudian conversation because like this is obviously what Freud was getting after was like trying to attach relevance to dreams and like they being like a gateway to like the inner self or like almost a gateway to like how
The
experiences
ego.
the ego, right? The ego, and then like life experience, how that shapes the way that it's like shapes self perception and can like manifest in certain behaviors. Like this is a lot of psychotherapy dives into this. Have you ever heard of dialectic behavioral therapy?
I believe so.
I mean, it's like kind of it's like a it's an interesting. It's not new necessarily, but it's like a alternative to CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's meant for like it's obviously it's dialectic. It's like it's talk therapy specifically, but like in a very intense way. It's like intentionally
Don't you
designed.
just like rifle stuff out?
Yeah, it's like it's the idea is to tap into like um the idea is to like yeah, it's like to flush the mind of inner thought almost.
Right, you just
I,
like whatever,
I'm
like
I'm gonna I'm giving a poor description of what it actually.
I think I've skimmed by it too at some time in my life. It's like a, if I'm not mistaken, like you just you're supposed to like just say like the first thing on your mind, like the like first like subconscious thing until like you end up getting to like the root, but the main thing is just like not thinking about it and just saying it or something.
Something along those lines. Like it's a form of talk therapy, but like the goals I think are a lot different. Like it's like with cognitive behavioral therapy, I think it's you're more so trying to like um the different because they're obviously it's behavioral therapy. So you're attaching your choice making, your decision making in real life to you're talking about those choices in an explanatory way. Is like kind of like the goal. Whereas like cognitive behavioral therapy is like kind of like specifically it's I think it's trying to like target people who intense like very high, like manic people, like people who have very high highs, very low lows,
Yeah,
and
it just switch up your thinking patterns.
right, and then like DBT is a little bit different from what I recall. It's about people who have trouble like regulating or like uh, controlling their emotions, and um, it helps them like I don't know keep it in check by talking through by like talking it out in a more intense way in kind of elongated way. Um, it's an interesting, not new but sort of new form of therapy. I don't know how we get on therapy, but um,
Oh,
yeah,
do we
because we're
from
talking
Jungian stuff?
yeah, we're talking like Freud and Young and all that. But I think dreams are probably helpful. I don't particularly dream all that intensely. For the
So
most part, but
I like I like dreams just because I like sometimes like I always extrapolate on people's stuff if they talk about it because it is like a metaphor or like a simile for the most part, but the only person that can know exactly what the meaning is or at least find like a true deeper meaning is going to be the person who has the dream. Like so you can extrapolate on it all you want, and it's kind of like I feel the same way about like psychics and mediums. Like they can say something that will like resonate in you, but it resonates in you. Like you have to come to that conclusion, you know what I mean? Like whether
yeah,
someone guides you there or not, like it's I don't know. It's I like the serendipity of dreams, or at least rather that's what I miss the most because I'd have stuff that I would like that would kind of happen in my dream, and then you'll have like a case of deja vu, and then you'll be like, am I just literally remembering this as it happened, or did I like dream this?
yeah.
And then some
Was this somewhere in a dream state that I just don't recall? Like that's it. I think that's actually there's probably some merit to that. Like that's what
what's the weirdest dream? Have you ever had any weird coincidences or dreams that you can't explain? Because I have one that is borderline spooky. It is either a crazy coincidence,
the premonition.
um, yeah, it's either a crazy coincidence or I Assassin Creed like genetic memoried my dad's memory
Ooh, that's wild.
in a dream. Yeah, right. I'll explain mine and then let me know if you have like a weird dream or something that like coincided one time. So here's my dream. I or no, I think it's a dream because here in hindsight, I think it's a dream because I experienced this. Here's what I experienced. I went to my I went to Louisiana when I was like 4 or 5 years old. Um, Me and my cousin were sitting there, we were playing video games, and I we were just sitting there playing like whatever, didn't matter. It was a Nintendo, and he's like, "I'm thirsty. Like, you want to get something to drink?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like, he's like, "You want to get some water?" And I was like, "You know what? Yeah, let's get some water." Usually I would drink something a little fancy, but I'm like, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So I was like, "Yeah, let's get some water." So he gets 2 cups. He fills them up. He hands me a cup. He's drinking water. I'm drinking water. We're just two bros chilling, drinking water. Like, this is great. And my aunt comes in. I've never really been like formally introduced. Like, maybe I've seen her one time, but I am very much like a child, like 4 years old. I don't know what's going on. I don't even know where I am. Uh, Drinking the water, and then he's like coming in the kitchen and drinking water. Like, how are you just gonna like drink water? You didn't ask anyone if you could drink water. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I was set up. Like he didn't need to ask. I was like, why am I getting yelled at? I'm a guest. Like, so, and I'm a 4 year old, so you can't even form any kind. You can't defend yourself at 4. You can think all it, and here's why I feel for kids, because I thought all that ran through my head in 13 seconds, but like I couldn't. You can't say that. Like, you can't form a sentence and be like, well, I just don't think it's fair that I'm getting singled out because I was 4. So I'm sitting there getting a little flustered, like looking around, and then my other aunt comes in, and then she's like, "You leave that poor boy alone. He's just drinking water in the kitchen. Like, you ain't yelling at him, and he's drinking water. You ain't got nothing better to do than just." He's like, "Come," she's like, "Come here, baby. Like, don't pay her no mind." And I was like, "Okay, like someone with some sense. This is great." And then ever since I was 4 years old, that's end scene. I don't remember anything until like like my 6th birthday or whatever. Um, but a couple years ago, I was hanging out with my dad, right? And he's like, "Yeah, I was hanging out with my cousin, and we go to the keys. So you want to get some water?" And we go to the kitchen, and then we're drinking water. And then she's like, "What are you doing drinking water? You need to ask someone." And then his aunt came in, and then she's like, "You leave that poor boy alone." And so he's telling me this story, and I'm like,
You're about to puke.
"Yeah," I'm like, that happened to me.
Wow, that's
I was
that.
like, I don't know who or what. I was like, but like maybe. So here's the thing too. We could just that could have just been like my aunt's daughter, and that she's just a bitch too in the same exact way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean maybe, but
But
there's
that would
still
make
pretty
more
hard.
sense, like that we both were victimized, and they're both just fucking kind of bitches to kids for no reason because they want to feel strong. But either way, he was telling me the story. I was like, what the fuck?
That is pretty wild. I have to admit, that's pretty rare.
Yeah,
I
it tripped
can't
me
think that
out.
anything like that's ever genuinely happened to me. Not that I can think of. My dreams are pretty unremarkable for the most part. Like
I think
I have like the recurring dream, and it is all attached to like um the recurring dream that it's actually a recurring nightmare technically. It's the Mike Myers dream and not like Austin Powers. Like I'm talking like serial killer
oh yeah, baby.
John Carpenter, and it's all because my grandmother traumatized me when I was 4. For some reason, this woman thought it was a great idea, and I'm gonna put it on blast right here on this fucking on the airwaves. I don't even care.
Blast on the cast.
Yeah, it's going down. Yeah, blasting on the cast. She showed me the original Halloween when I was 4 years old on a spooky ass fall night when she was babysitting me at her house. And
Oh, so you're just old enough for like cognitive function
oh
and like
yeah,
kind of understand what's going on, but not old enough to know that this isn't real.
you know what though? I'm really proud of myself because I actually held it together that whole movie, and I did not actually flip out until he busts through the fucking closet at the end, and she stabs him with the coat hanger like in the eye.
Proud of yourself, bro. You're like 31 years old, still having nightmares about Michael Myers. It's okay to be
No,
it's
but I
okay to be
didn't flip
fun.
out though. My point is that
Yeah.
I was good. Like I was like sitting there soaking it in, not afraid, not crying. And then I did as soon as he like that actually got me, and I remember crying. And then I remember like it just so happened to coincide with my parents walking into pick me up right as I'm falling. And I'm like, damn it, if you had been here 10 minutes earlier, you would have seen me
Yeah,
being
but they
crazy.
see like a horror movie and they're like, "What's going on
Oh no,
here?"
they were so furious. They were so mad. Which, by the way, was not like the worst thing ever that my grandmother used to do like crazy shit. Like I say she's from a different time, but like no grandmother at any time should be doing shit like this. Like she used to walk us down to like this. She used to like go get scratch offs down at like the Seaway Plaza. Like we'd walk down this road, where like that walks along the road, the woods. And when she was watching us, she'd be like, she's got to go down to the liquor store and get like the scratch offs, and she would take us with her, and we'd walk with her. And we're walking down the road, and there's like this patch of woods, and for some reason, she thought that this was like okay to tell a 7-year-old that that a woman, oh yeah, a woman over in this patch of woods right here, right where you're standing, was raped and stabbed like 100 times and murdered right here in these woods. And I remember being 7 and being like, I don't know what the rape part means, but I definitely know what it means to get stabbed. And getting stabbed like 100 times is not something that doesn't sound good. And then like having like the image in my brain, like it's like what are you doing? Why would you?
Grandma knows best, dude.
Yeah, well, they say that, but it's not on display in this story. But the Mike Myers dream is always the one that gets me, and I think it stems from that. Like this dude is. It's because of that, and then I saw like that original we've talked about on the podcast actually, that original Nightmare on Elm Street, like that opening scene in like the boiler room, like
Mm-hmm.
like that shit. It's always inverse. It's like a combo. It's like Mike Myers in the boiler room, like stalking me down. He's just slowly stalking me down. He's just like he's coming after me, but he's coming slow, and I can outrun him. But I don't know where I'm going in this boiler room, and it's wet and it's dripping and shit's hot and it's like steamy.
Yeah.
Where to go? But like I'm climbing on a bunch of metal grates and shit, and I'm just trying to get out, and it's always that. Speaking of which, I want to pivot to this really quick because like not to make the podcast about film. We talk about film enough on the pod, but I want to talk about Skinamarink really quick. Do you see that? I sent the link of it to you, at least about the film.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think you got to give that a go. And I've been like kind of like stuck on it a little bit since I watched it. And it's honestly, I feel like everyone should just give it a whack. And most people are probably just like, it's such a unique standalone experience of a film. And it actually pertains directly to what we're talking about. If I can describe it without like giving too much away, um, the film is constructed to tap into to specifically childhood fear. All of the camera work is from that of like a child's POV. Like it's very low, and like it there's a bunch of like camera techniques that are very like that tap into like what it's like to be a child when you wake up from a nightmare in your home. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like it's like it's very on the nose. Like I don't know why, I don't know how they did it. I don't know how they did it, but you're just like, holy shit, this is exactly how I remember it feeling being like 5 or 6, and like maybe you having to walk down your hallway to your parents' bedroom to wake them up because you just had a nightmare or something, and like the fear of like walking in the dark down in your house. This movie just fucking nails that, and then it obviously elevates it to a absolutely horrifying level in ways that there's 2 kids in the house. The film is shot, you never actually really see the kids head on because you're kind of always looking from their POV, and like you're very low to the ground, and the lighting is so weird that it plays tricks on your eyes, so you're kind of seeing stuff in the dark just like a kid would. And there's a couple like under the bed shots, and um, there's like toy shots, and the rooms are kind of lit up from like a TV that's been left on, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like the very strange lighting, very strange sound. And it turns out that like, okay, these 2 kids are alone in the house. The parents are now missing, and something is in this house with them.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh shit, like holy shit, what's going on? Like there are a couple scenes that like I swear to God, it felt like my heart stopped. I was just like my hands were like sweating, and I'm like, God damn, this is tapping in. I'm bringing this up specifically because I'm obsessed with like film and shit, but like mostly because like we're talking about like childhood shit, like childhood dreams and nightmares and what have you. And this movie like embodies that. It's fucking wild. wild movie. And if it doesn't work, like anybody listening, if it doesn't work for you, you'll know pretty soon. If you get to like the most intense point of the film and get through that scene without it doing anything for you, then you might as well just turn it off at that point because it might not reach you. But
That's fair.
if it does reach you, because it's an art film, it's a very like experimental thing. But it's hard to even categorize it really as a film. It doesn't feel like one. It feels like an experience. Like it's like an emotional experience because you're really it doesn't it's not really about being a movie, and it's about like it evokes like an emotion from you. It's very strange.
It's art then.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, it does things that art does, but um
Better than my reoccurring dreams though.
which is what
I
is it?
think I was saying that the when we're talking about the gray, it's either I'm in some perilous. It's always like life or death. I'm always dying in some kind of horrible situation, whether it's like a plane crash or just getting straight up shot.
Oh, like actually shot.
Yeah, like someone will like turn around and be like, "Oh, they got a gun." It'll be like pop pop. I'll just be like, "Oh, I'm on the floor."
Yeah, I don't really have that one. I feel like that one's like I feel like it's more likely that you have to have been shot and get that PTSD going to kind of
No,
run
don't get me wrong. I've never been shot.
on this lifetime, maybe in a past life, somebody hit you with
Right.
a musket.
You know what it is? If I had to think about it, it's probably just because subconsciously I feel like I'm not in control of my like literal life. Like my life's in someone else's hands,
Mm, okay.
because like they are taking it from me.
Oh, yeah. So you're forced to hand over your life.
Right, right. And then I'm never upset and I'm never even really scared. It's like not like willingly, but just yeah, it is like just not fighting back, just accepting me handing my life over. You know what? Need to switch that up. I need to punch the guy in the face.
Yeah, you gotta fight back in those dreams. Well, it's always that moment, and the dream a dream always ends like just as something like permanent's about to happen.
Yeah.
That's kind of like always the point of a dream, I guess.
I've had a lot of black screens in
I
dreams.
can't ever shake the Jimmy Neutron episode. I think it was where he's got to do something wild and unbelievable in the dream to like wake himself up. Was it Jimmy Neutron or was it like
Yeah,
fucking?
and I think he like kisses Cindy or something.
He does something wild. Well, yeah, like he's in the dream and he's trying to figure out how to wake himself up, and so he's got to do something. Yeah, I think he does. I think he kisses the one girl. Yeah, it's either that or Fairly Odd Parents or something, and that's always been in my head. It was like always it doesn't work in the actual dream world, but for some reason,
It's this Monkey Bone,
what's Monkey Bone? Is that a
the
movie?
movie Monkey Bone. The guy, he's a cartoon. He's like a cartoon creator, and then he goes in a coma, and then his cartoon creation like is gonna try to take him over, and then he's gonna die if that happens. So like he's going through like his subconscious as he's dying, and he needs to wake up out the coma, or else like his creation's gonna just be like a weird, crazy guy out in the real world and like get him killed.
Okay,
Monkey, you would do Monkey Bone, dude. I
is
can't.
that with what's his fucking name? Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, yeah,
Meet Fraser.
they're there.
You're here. Well, we wanted to go short on this. So do you want to wrap it or talk about what's coming up next on
Yeah,
the
let's do both. Let's talk about what's coming up.
and then we'll wrap it up. Yeah. So well, we're gonna we're gonna hopefully as long as Erroll can get his shit together, we're gonna do Blaze Foley sitting by the road. We're gonna do that podcast next week. We'll probably pump that out. That'll be out next Monday. This will be just a quick fireside chat, just to fill in, just a little. We'll do some updating on what we're planning for the pod. Um, I'll actually take a look at what we can do is we've got our kind of schedule locked in, so we might as well just kind of not announce it necessarily, but like this is kind of what we have planned at least. That's always subject to change, but for the most part, this should be pretty locked in. So this week you got your fireside chat. Next week we're gonna do "Sittin' by the Road" by Blaze Foley. We're gonna talk about that compilation album. We'll talk a little Blaze Foley about his life and some stuff around that film, or I'm sorry, around that artist from the 70s and 80s. And talk about that music because the music is great. Erroll actually listened to something that we were. Well, let's talk about that for a few minutes. I mean, you happened to get mixed up. What Errol ended up getting mixed up was a record that came out last summer that I had suggested we talk about this summer when it kind of gets around about the 1 year mark that the album was out, which was Weather Vanes by Jason Isbell and the 400 Unit. We were planning on doing that, and I offered it up for like a June pod because we're kind of trying to schedule out the year as best we can, trying to fill in our weeks and just get things in order so we can do our prep work. Errol ended up listening to that album instead of the Blaze Foley. Errol, you want to kind of like dish out some initial thoughts on what you thought of that album, and then we'll definitely do a deep dive on it if you think it's worth it come June.
Oh no, I absolutely do think it's worth a deep dive. One of the I won't even say like better country albums because like I've said it before, I'm not the biggest country fan, but it's like legit one of the better albums I've heard in whole, like front to back. Um, it's almost like a concept album.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's like a lot of thematic stuff that he's
Yeah, and a couple of them, if you ask me, are like intertwining, or at least they can be seen as that. At least I did.
I've always said that he's like, and I think I said this in the text to you that like he's like the best songwriter of our generation. He's like I call him our generation's Bob Dylan. Like I think he tackles social issues in a very creative way. I don't think he's as good of a writer as Bob Dylan was. Obviously, that's a very high bar. But like in
Well,
terms
I
of
mean, even putting them in the
song,
same sentence is kind of that's what's
yeah. I
you
just
know.
mean in terms of songwriting, like specifically, like Bob Dylan was like he could have written books, like he could have written at length, whereas this dude is built, like he is built to write songs. He has mastered the craft of writing songs, um measure for measure. Like he's at pound for pound, measure for measure, he is as good as songwriters get in the 21st century, in my opinion. And he really knows, like from that album, and we'll talk about it, King of Oklahoma. I was telling Errol was like, I think that's like the one of the more important songs written in the 21st century about middle America and about um, drug use and familial collapse, and like there's just a lot to it that like can really it's like a very common story told in a very beautiful way in this like very intimate and
And it's yeah, it's made a lot more human because
oh
it's so easy to be on the other side of that and be like, I can't believe someone's just gonna like, oh, someone's just stripping copper.
yep. And
But
then
he's like, nah, like gotta do that. Like there's no cameras, and then he gets there, he's like, someone else. No, hate to spoil it, but he's like, someone else got that, man.
yeah. Well, we'll talk about the album because there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on in the album about, it's just it's a beautiful record, and it was honestly it's not even his best. I mean, he's got several other ones that are, but he's never really put out a bad one. They're all very good, and they've all got a lot to talk about. So I figured since that'll kind of cross the 1 year mark, Weather Vanes by Jason Isbell and the 400 Unit, you can look out for that in June. Also, it's funny too. That will actually work out beautifully too because he's actually coming to Syracuse in June. Jason Isbell. He's coming to Beacon Skiff for our listeners. If you haven't checked it out, Beacon Skiff is an apple orchard here in central New York in Lafayette, just south of Syracuse. It's like this big, beautiful apple orchard. Errol, have you ever heard of 1911?
Yeah.
The alcohol?
Hmm.
That's the distillery. That's their like headquartered distillery. 1911 is made in Lafayette at the Beacon Skiff Apple Orchards. And he's playing there, so they put concerts on there. I've been to a couple shows there. It's wonderful. It's like they put a big stage up, and it's like right in front of the apple. There's a big open field, and then a bunch of like apple orchards all surrounding you, and it's just a beautiful venue. And he's playing there at the end of June, so we can do the album in the beginning of June, and then we'll plug some of his show dates, and it'll be like kind of 1 year mark. I also will mention he was in Killers of the Flower Moon.
Well,
Yeah, oh yeah, it was like his acting debut. Scorsese cast him as he's kind of got a big role in the movie. To be honest, he's in like a bunch of the movie. He's in there a lot. He has like a couple of like very central scenes where he goes toe to toe with DiCaprio in one scene, and then it's otherwise very much of a supporting role, like where he's kind of just sort of in the background of a lot of scenes, but he's a good actor. Dude can act. Uh,
Nice.
that being
Oh
said, that's
yeah,
gonna
June
June 20th.
29th.
Beacon Skiff, yeah. So people should check him out in the state of New York. I definitely will be at the show. I've seen him live, and it's his music is so. I've been listening to him since he was with Drive By Truckers, um, you know, 15 years ago at this point, probably more, maybe even longer. He's been around. He's been in my music world for a solid 10 or 15 years, and it's been a joy to watch his kind of career blossom into this like very much
Dang,
impressive. Um,
that's $116 per.
no, you're looking at the wrong. It shouldn't be that much. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be at least. Let's take a look. Where are you looking on the Beacon Skiff website?
No,
Yeah, that's your problem. You gotta go right to the. It should be like maybe $70. At the highest
I think
end.
like 88.
Yeah, if you go right to the tickets from the website, 59.50 for GA. $60. You just got to go to the website. So, folks, if you're interested in this summer seeing Jason Isbell in Lafayette, New York, just go to the Beacon Skiff. Type in Beacon Skiff in your Google bar, Jason Isbell, and we'll pull you right up. Hit the tickets, $59.50. Can't beat it. Should be a good show.
Yep.
Great show. I saw him 2 summers ago, and he's amazing. I mean, he's just amazing. His music is so like very emotional and intimate. He's quite a performer. It's really good. So that's probably coming in June. But let's talk about what's forthcoming after Blaze Foley. We got Blaze Foley next weekend, and then we're gonna do to close out the month of January. We're gonna do an episode that centers around. We touched on it a little bit today, but we're gonna talk about a few of the different psychedelic medicines, and we're gonna kind of do a deep dive and try to unpack. We'll probably pick a couple each that we were going to want to talk about, and we'll kind of just have a loose discussion about like where they're at in terms of medical development and how they are being kind of rolled out into the public. Now that there's been some research, I know Johns Hopkins is like a big player in the development of some of these stuff or some of these substances in terms of mental health treatment specifically, and a lot of PTSD treatment. But we're going to do a big episode on that, and then I think we'll probably record for that, and then we're going to sit down hopefully over Zoom. Erroll, hopefully this is still in the books. We're gonna talk to Erroll's uncle, who's had a very specific psychedelic experience that was very much helpful for him in his life in a bunch of different ways. And we'll kind of sit down and do a little interview style with him and chat for about a half an hour, 45 minutes, and kind of talk that out on the back end of that episode. That's still on the docket, Erroll?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm really excited about it, and I know he is too.
Oh, good.
He swears there are a lot of positive effects, and he didn't have anything real negative other than the experience itself. He said it wasn't easy as
Yeah,
well. So
I've heard that. I've heard that it can be very traumatic and very intense and kind of shape shifting. But we'll let him kind of talk about that and explain what his experience was and all the downstream effects that it had on him. So that'll be kind of like a 2-part episode. Errol and I'll have like a discussion to open the pod, same length, probably about half an hour, 45 minutes, and then we'll have that on the back end, an interview with with Errol's uncle. And what's your uncle's full name? Just me,
that's Mick McCarthy.
McCarthy. Okay, so we'll talk to him about his experience and on the back end of that episode. That will close out the month of January, and then we'll roll into February. February's looking like this. First week, we're gonna do a biography of Chet Baker. We're gonna go back to that biography series. We definitely owe one for that. We haven't touched the biography series in quite a while, probably in a few months. So we're gonna dive in, tell the story of Chet Baker. We're gonna follow that up with another music entry. We're gonna talk about Daniel Johnston's "Hi, How Are You," which is another. That's a really good like double feature almost, or a double episode to match or to pair with the Blaze Foley one.
Yeah.
Both like very low fidelity, very like scratchy recordings of like kind of independent artists who basically got the music recorded and made in like the cheapest and easiest way they possibly could have, but still managed to kind of push through some like artistic vision to each of them.
And I also think it kind of adds to it.
Yeah, it's a perfect like double whammy to go back to back on the music series with those two, because we have talked about some other like kind of bigger. We talked about Lupe Fiasco and we talked about Wu Tang, which are both rap albums, and they're both like Wu Tang a little bit on the lower production side, but like still kind of iconic and big and mainstream. Now we're gonna kind of dive off into the kind of the underground of music, for the next two. Um, we're gonna follow that up with what I'm looking forward to probably most on the podcast to talk about. We're gonna talk about major a major film in Black History Month. We're gonna talk. We're gonna add another. That'll be the next time we return to the film series. We're gonna talk about 12 Years a Slave, which is going to be very, very difficult to talk about. It's going to be very difficult to watch the film again. I saw the film for like the second time a year or so ago, and it was very difficult to watch. Very upsetting film, like in a super intense way. I know that I'm almost I'm not unqualified. I don't want to like disqualify myself from talking about like Black history, but like because I do think I think everybody could have some contribution to that dialogue. So I'll do the best I can as a non-Black person, to talk about slavery and what the film means. I'll probably try to stick with what the film is trying to convey, and Erroll as our as our African American representative for the podcast. I'll let you kind of take the lead on that episode, but I'm looking really forward to talking about that big important episode. I think.
Yeah, you're like, as a white person, I'll like do what I can. And I'm thinking, as a black person, I'll say what I want, I suppose.
Well, I'm gonna say what I want, but I'm also not. I'm just also not gonna pretend that like, as a white person being on on one side of the coin. The
Hey,
film.
you're the one. This is your call. So
I know, no, it absolutely because
right.
I think it's an extremely important film that I think people chose to forget because of how upsetting it was.
Don't
It's
yeah.
such a,
Don't
no,
let me try to.
I'll definitely listen. I'll say I'm fully capable of having a mature conversation without being completely steeped in my own like. I'm not gonna stick my head in the sand and pretend that like this film hits me the same way it hits African Americans because I obviously know it does not. But it's still it's no matter who could watch this film, it is deeply emotional and very 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 upsetting, very depressing, awful things to see, but a beautiful film, and in my opinion, a very important film. And I think it fits perfectly into Black History Month. I think it'll be a difficult thing to sit through and watch again, and it'll also be difficult to talk about, but it'll be important to talk about. And I think it'll be one of our most important episodes to do. So looking forward to that. We'll do all the legwork and prep work for that, and that'll be coming out third week in February. Then we will close February out with an introduction to the history, or not an introduction, but more so the next installment of the history podcast, history series, I should say. We're going to talk about, we're going to try to unpack and give a historical breakdown of what was another kind of forgotten moment in history in a lot of ways. We're going to do the backstory and kind of try to chronologically break down the assassination attempt of President at the time President Ronald Reagan. Once again, another like very very historic moment that
Right, like that happened.
shit happened. Oh yeah, and he almost died. Like he actually was the assassination attempt was almost successful, and there's a bunch of backstory tied to Taxi Driver, the Martin Scorsese film. Jodie Foster, John Hinckley was a madman, and there was like it's just a fascinating story that I think is due for a retelling on the podcast, just because I found it super interesting, and I think it'd be a lot of fun to do some like deeper reading on. So um,
I'm uh I'm gonna say something I only feel comfortable saying it here because it's like the fireside chat. I saw this like it was like a meme. It was just like a picture of Jodie Foster, and she's like, "I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of impressed when I seen that he
Oh my
went
god.
through." I was like, I was like, "Oh my god, whoever wrote that
That's
song!"
so messed up.
It was like a quote from it. It's like, I was actually a little impressed that he went there. I
Can't
was
believe you
like,
got. I can't believe you got that close.
right. And I was like, I hate the internet.
Me too. That's
I
just it.
actually found it really attractive that he went through all that and I was like, I
I couldn't
swear, I'm
believe
never
it.
gonna.
I couldn't believe that he managed to
He
almost.
really did. I found it endearing that he did that for me.
Yeah, that's pretty insane.
Yeah.
That's the internet for you though. So that's through February. March is actually booked up too, and March looks pretty good. There'll probably be a week off somewhere in there in either February or March. It looks like March is kind of like we're booked out through the third week of or the fourth week of March.
Oh,
And
I have yeah, I'll be on vacation. I think I'm heading to the island
when is that?
like the third week of March.
That's fine. Yeah, because there's that third week. We have a week at the end of March, so we'll just push one of these back. But what we've got scheduled for March is going to be first week will be we're going to record on March 2nd, which means it'll be released March 4th. We're going to shift things up a little bit in the world of MMA. We talk MMA, but I also know we like to talk MMA, but we also and UFC, but we like to talk boxing too. So I'm trying to encapsulate both and make sure that because I feel bad because I actually want to talk some boxing, what's going on in the sport. There was a huge knockout last night from Arthur Betterbeeve, who is 20-0 with 20 knockouts, which is wild and is unheard of in the sport. But like, I feel like we don't get a chance to kind of really cover the both sports, and I think it's due to cover both of them the best we can. So we're going to introduce a new series that's going to try to like um, kind of fit the UFC MMA stuff into a its own series that will cover every other month or every handful of or every like 6 weeks or so. And so that series is going to be called Current Combat, and we're going to basically just recap what's gone on in the previous month or so in the world of MMA and boxing. We're going to talk about what's forthcoming, and then we'll talk about what's forthcoming in both those sports and kind of get excited, maybe do a little prediction stuff like that. But we'll talk about both sports in one episode. We'll probably do one every 6 weeks or so. And for that specific episode, we're probably going to recap the first couple months of the year, and then we'll do a little preview of what is going to come that month, which is going to be UFC 299, and then Francis Ngannou versus Anthony Joshua, which I can't even believe that I'm saying that those fights going to happen, but it is going to happen, and it's going to be wild. So that'll be what we talk about week one. Week two, we are talking. This is Errol's pick for the film series. We're going to talk the 1984 cult classic, The Toxic Avenger, which I have not seen. I'm looking forward to watching that. By the way, super pumped. You have not brought a whole lot of films to the series that like I haven't seen yet, so I'm pretty excited to give that a go. You got any
Yeah,
thoughts on
so
that?
yeah, so I always really liked this movie because of I saw it like when I was really young. It was on G4, the old gaming network, and it's just like an old campy's 80 movie that is like unapologetically 80s. And
Yes,
the
awesome.
only reason why I was like 100% we need to cement this in because they're doing a redo. They're doing another one now.
Yeah, I
That's
have
like a
seen that. It's funny because when you said it, that's what I thought you were talking about. I was like, bro, I thought we were just talking about doing something from like the 70s or 80s. And you were like, oh no, this is the original. And I was like, oh, okay, so this is a remake coming out in 2023 with Peter Dinklage, right?
right, well, 2024.
Oh, right, this year. Sorry. Yep. Yeah, you're right. 2024. So when is that due? Then that's due to come out.
I don't. You think I would?
That's okay. Well, we'll get to it when that episode comes out. We'll get to all those dirty details. And then, like you said, it looks like the week after that, you'll probably be on vacation. And then, so we'll take a week off in there somewhere and we'll push these last two to the last 2 weeks. There's 5 weeks in March. So we're going to at least hit four of them. And we're going to do another biography on the story of Johnny Ace. Fascinating story, fascinating end to his story. And I'm looking forward to talking about that one. We'll talk a little bit about his music, his impact on music, the folklore that was his life, and that'll be a pretty short episode. Be short for a very specific reason. You'll find out when we actually do the deep dive. And then to close out March, and this is where we're booked up to. We've got some ideas in the works coming forward, but we're going to close out March with the final film installment of that month, and that's going to be Donnie Darko. We'll be talking Donnie Darko. So that's what you've got to look forward to in the Peripheral Views podcast. Erroll, is there any? And like I said, I should kind of mention as we're getting through all this, some of this stuff will be subject to change. If something does crop up that we feel like needs to get swapped out, we do sometimes pivot, as we found out tonight. Erroll sometimes doesn't do his flipping job, and now we've got to do a fireside chat and talk about dreams and shit.
Yeah, it happens.
Sometimes it's going to happen. So there is some flexibility on all that, but hopefully that's kind of the path we're on. Those are the topics we're going to be taking on in the next couple months. So you got something to look forward to. And like I said, some of those are subject to change potentially. But that is the goal for now. And then in April, we've got a few things. We're starting to filter out some ideas, but we'll get there we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So, Erroll, anything else you want to touch on before we close out the first installment of the Fireside Chat? This isn't exactly the way I thought that the Fireside Chat would go, but it's a good introduction. It's just like the history series. Like the history series was kind of like you get your feet wet before you dive in head first.
Oh yeah, we'll have a true chat by the fireside here eventually. But
yeah, maybe a live recording even.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. But yeah, no, it's yeah, no, I don't really have anything. I never really have nothing by the end of it.
Perfect. All right, well, we'll close it out, and like I said, hopefully next this will be out tomorrow, Monday. So hopefully you guys enjoy the quick fireside chat, little recap, and then we'll on what's coming up on the Peripheral Views podcast. And then, next Monday, look out for Blaze Foley, Sittin by the Road. We're going to talk about that album, and we'll talk about it track for track, the way we do in the music series. And that's a wrap for the Peripheral Views podcast for tonight. Should hit a little bit of housekeeping on the way out, as per usual. We're on Twitter /X at Peripheral View 123. We have our own website where all of our content is uploaded and is available for streaming, peripheralviewspodcast.com. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. If you happen to listen to us on any one of the three, please leave us a rating and review and a subscription. Super helpful for the analytics and the algorithms, all that stuff. It helps our numbers. It helps our growth. So we really appreciate any support you can offer us on that front. We're also on SoundCloud.com /Peripheral Views 123 if you choose to use that app for streaming. And if you want to reach us a little bit more directly, a little bit off social media or offline, our email account is peripheralviewspodcast@gmail.com, and we will respond expeditiously as we typically do. The last podcast we did was on The Gray. Feel free to dive back to that. That was 2012's The Gray by Joe Carnahan, starring Liam Neeson. I thought we nailed that episode. It was a really, really fun movie to talk about because it's like an above average, secretly above average, great action survivalist thriller, and with some like beautiful like symbolism throughout the film, and it was in some deeper stuff going on with it that was fun to kind of unpack.
Yeah, it definitely puts The Gray in great.
Solid. Yes, sir. Yes, it does. So feel free to go back. And I thought we put The Gray in The Gray specifically in terms of coverage. So feel free to dive back to that episode. That is one back in the podcast library. So feel free to give that a listen. And if you haven't already, or watch the film and then listen, because it's a great film, a lot to talk about. So that being said, I think that's just about it for the Peripheral Views podcast. We really appreciate all the support you guys give us, and we'll see you on the next round of the Peripheral Views podcast. Thanks for joining us again, and we'll see you next time.
up, up.